A very good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to this 109th edition of the Together for Education webinars brought to you by Notebook. Long back in April 2020, when the pandemic had just started, since schools had shut down, we at Notebook set up this Together for Education webinar series. The idea was twofold. One was to get our education fraternity more acquainted with the online education products that were out there. Digital education was quickly becoming more and more important, and we felt this was a good way to get all our teachers acquainted with the Zoom platform. The other more important part was obviously connecting the community with people working from home and students learning from home. There was a feeling of isolation that was beginning to set in, and we at Notebook considered it our duty to step in and do something about it. Well, today, more than a year and more than 100 episodes later, we believe that this event has taken a life of its own. Today, we've had the fortune of getting some wonderful thought leaders, celebrities, and senior educators on our platform to discuss a myriad range of topics, ranging from the new education policy, sports and games, mental health, curricular, extracurricular, house systems, and last session, we also discussed about office bearers in schools. Today, however, is a topic that is very close to our hearts here at Notebook, and I'm sure something that is of great importance to you as educators as well. We all have been speaking about the 21st century skills. Well, one thing that we know as entrepreneurs is if there's one thing that you could do that tests every one of those skills to the hilt, that is setting up your own venture. And one does not always need to set up a startup or start a venture to be entrepreneurial. It's an attitude. It's a go-getter, problem-solving attitude that we want to see developed in our young learners. So today, we are going to talk about how schools are nurturing entrepreneurship. To talk about this, our first speaker today is Mr. Philip Burrett. Mr. Burrett retired as the Deputy Headmaster from the illustrious Doon School in Dehradun after 44 years of serving in education. Mr. Burrett served the Doon School as Housemaster, Head of Department, Dean of Activities, Dean of Student Welfare, Deputy Headmaster, Second Master, and Acting Headmaster with great distinction. He also carried out a visioning exercise for the Doon School in the year 2011 through an in-depth study of a number of British public schools and various schools in the US. Mr. Burrett qualified as a leadership trainer at Wellington College, UK in the year 2000. He is also an athlete, an adventurer, and a naturalist. And we at Notebook are privileged to have him as our senior advisor. Sir, thank you so much for being here. Over to you.
Thank you very much, Subhayu, for that introduction. And a very good evening to Achin, you, Abhishek, Gagori, and Meghna, and all the other people at Notebook. Also, a very good evening to our esteemed panelists, many of whom I know, and also the guests who've tuned in for this evening. Okay, so it's an interesting topic. If you just watch children at play, they play doctor, doctor, house, house, cooking, cooking. And so it's already there, the propensity to do something, to put one's talents to good use. These early career choices might be, inspired by mother and father, but the seeds to be an entrepreneur set in very early. For me, the word entrepreneur conjures up a picture of a person following a dream, a passion, in order to serve the community or serve the world, and also to make a living in the process. And to that extent, it fits in very well with the Japanese principle of the ikigai, which I so love, where there are 4 circles which intersect. And if you get an imbalance between these circles, then the job that you choose is going to be probably will be unsustainable. So one circle is what you are good at. And the second is what you love to do. The third is, will you be paid for it? And the fourth is, will the world want it? And so where these circles intersect, you can find out your vocation, your passion, your profession, and your mission. And it's important to actually take children through this. Otherwise, if one of the circles is imbalanced, you'll get the right, you'll be, you'll have a lot of money, you will be serving, but your heart won't be in it, maybe. Recently, I watched a movie, a TV serial called Selena. It's a story about a Chicano Mexican singer who actually won a Grammy Award. And The story is about how she climbed to fame, very much supported by her family through early poverty, and how they did well and they reached great heights. And the whole story rests on this great ability that this girl had. But she also had a relentless drive. She got support from her family and friends, a lot of encouragement, some luck. She had good communication, and she had the right connections. And that's why, she got where she was. Entrepreneurship comes from the word enterprise. Once I looked up to people like the Tatas and Birlas and Modis and Ambanis, and I thought only these people, who led India to prosperity and grew their enterprises and empires, I thought they were entrepreneurs. But everyone is an entrepreneur. One doesn't have to be a millionaire. Just see the number of people who have discovered ways of making a living in this COVID lockdown situation. People are baking, cooking, there's a lot of fitness and yoga classes, there's online teaching, there's home delivery. Every need has an app that, answers to it. People have just filled the need gap that existed, and they jumped in to help people. And that in doing so, they showed great enterprise. People show enterprise when they can take risks, follow their heart, keep the consumer in mind, and keep it despite the setbacks, and get others to believe in what they're doing, so that you build a supportive team. Now, schools can do a lot to build enterprise, even at a young age. Schools are places where all the above mentioned qualities, this risk-taking, this having the other in mind, can be developed in schools. It is in schools where students get their first idea, their first vision, their first epiphany of what they might like to do later on in life. So I've seen many rock bands which were formed in school. Children are talking about it in class 8. They play for the school orchestra, and they later on move into great musicians. Designers, all the designers started at school by drawing and sketching. The great chefs started by working maybe at the school canteen. Artists began their careers out of the art school and the workshop. Computer geeks who went on to develop their own successful apps started in school. And we have in our school, we had dropouts and academically weak students who went on to becoming India's foremost whitewater rafters. And they set up the early rafting camps on the Ganges. These are all enterprising people. One of our boys even wrote a book on economics during his first year at Delhi University. And this to make a little pocket money, but also to serve the others. He wrote this guidebook for economics, which a lot of people bought. So many students I know chose professions not based on their college or university degree, but on their passion from working in the hobbies classes, in their skill classes, in the SUPW. Many a stock market expert started work in the commerce SUPW. Architects, might be students who were encouraged to build plastic bottles, plastic houses. Doctors began by working in the school St. John's ambulance scheme. And a lot of people who are into the automobile business or who are flying planes started off with, the aero modeling STA. We had a boy, in fact, in school who actually developed and built his own microlight and flew it and got into the Limca Book of World Records as a result. He was only 16 years old. Another student who I know I'm still in touch with he wasn't good in studies, and he started work as an NDTV breakfast show host. And then he moved to starting his own company called Travel Talk, where he took groups of people on bikes to Goa. And then when all that came to an end, he's now picked up his guitar, which again he learned in school, and has a very thriving group in Delhi and plays in a lot of clubs and has a rather large following. In fact, 4 of our students from school began in the music school, strumming and singing. And today, Duelist Inquiry, Rag, Hari and Sukhmani are some of the big names that came out of our music school. I must say that the Doon School students were encouraged to serve the wider community. So the spirit of service was very deeply ingrained. Um, as I have mentioned earlier in an earlier webinar, the DNA of the boys in school were to be leaders to serve a free and democratic India. And therefore, every student somehow or the other imbibed this idea of becoming excellent, to seek excellence. Some years ago, the Wall Street Journal, I think it was 2003, brought out an article showcasing the number of ex-students who were very successful bankers in New York. And they traced this phenomena back to the way they lived and worked in school, where they, again, sought excellence and they sought to serve others. Now, all the associations, clubs, hobby clubs, community service projects, the publications, they were run by students. And that's where they learned the skill of leadership, management, how to run teams, how to collaborate, how to make decisions and take decisions, how to work with the staff, how to work on conflict management, apart from, of course, a little politics, which they also pick up on the way. The school's business club at one time organized an entrepreneur month where they allowed students to pick some sort of enterprise and to make money off it. And this money would go back into the club. And it is amazing how these kids thought of so many little businesses, almost like the Shark Tank that we saw on TV. They had to come, they had to give a written explanation of what they would do and how they would make the money. And we had a boy who started a club called Second Helping. He took food leftovers from our kitchen and started distributing it to poor children in the slums. Of course, he didn't make much money on that. Then there was microfinancing. There was even a group of boys who made cupcakes and they sold these at the school functions, inter-house activities or before the plays. And they made a killing. They made a lot of money on this. There was a group that started a thing called room decor. So when senior boys get their own private room, they like to do up this room because they're allowed to do up rooms only when they have their private rooms. And rather than go to town and buy posters and get them framed and get rugs, it was these boys who actually did up their room at some profit, and they made money. They made money. Boys made silks, and they got into wool making, make scarves for the school, leather manufacturing. All these. I mean, I know these boys had business backgrounds and they knew how to, operate, but these were all enterprising, sparks that we saw. It is in school that teachers need to notice and encourage the innate skills. They need to encourage and support, challenge as well, challenge the students to grow, to develop communication skills, work as a team, lead. They need to learn leadership, in which the school had a lot of that. They need to understand the skills of negotiation, putting forward their point of view, holding ground, resolving conflicts, training in resilience, because when you start an enterprise, you're going to fail. I mean, nobody succeeds first time, and then getting up again and again to carry on that dream of yours, that is resilience. Also, when you reach a dead end and you couldn't go any further, then the ability to change and to understand that this is not your way. So the school should give the students the first experiment with an activity or a skill. And I think if I had to finish with 10 points that I think schools need to do to encourage children to be entrepreneurs, it is to start teaching children to take a different path, to follow one's gut. You don't have to go along the beaten track. Second is start a business, a side business of your own, even if it's small. Take risks. Third is stick with the challenge, persevere, be resilient. Fourth is delay gratification. You can't get instant success. You have to be patient, very important. Practice communication skills. This is where schools can teach you how to communicate. Learn from a mentor. you have to have someone who's older, maybe wiser, in the same sort of profession, who you can learn from. Learn to sell what you're good at. If you're good at something, you need to be able to talk about it and sell your product. Then you need to learn from people who are in the same business, who have gone miles ahead. Learn from other entrepreneurs. And the last one would be to encourage children to keep learning, to keep learning. So I think that's all I have to say on how to encourage entrepreneurship in schools. And I know we have three panelists, all great entrepreneurs, all have done such good work in their lives. And I look forward to hearing from them. Thank you very much, Shubhayu. I'm handing this over.
Thank you so much, sir. A very interesting point that you said about a side business as young students. Today, as the co-founder of a startup, Achin and myself, we are plugged into a lot of entrepreneurial circles, co-founders and founders, entrepreneurs of Calcutta, etc. And one of the things that comes out from any personal conversation that you have with an entrepreneur is that however frivolous, however casual, however small, when they were in school, they had all tried to do some business or the other. From renting out comic books to making stickers, people have tried almost everything. So, sir, thank you so much for the introduction. I think this sets the stage perfectly for the discussion to follow. Our next speaker, ladies and gentlemen, is Achin Bhattacharyya. Achin is the founder and CEO at Notebook. A chartered accountant by training, Achin was a director at Deloitte prior to starting Notebook. He has worked in India and abroad in various senior capacities in GE, PwC, KPMG, and Deloitte. He is a fellow of the ICAI and a member of CPA Australia and CPA Ireland. He is also the recipient of the prestigious Indian Achievers Award. Achin is an avid reader and a passionate traveler with keen interests in economics, history, literature, and philosophy. He is a regular speaker at various forums and chambers of commerce and also contributes articles to numerous publications regularly. He is also on the board of some of the most renowned corporates and contributes significantly to their brand strategies. Achin, over to you.
Good evening, everyone. Shubha, am I audible?
Yeah, Achin, loud and clear.
I once again welcome all of you to today's session on a topic which is very important and close to my heart. Three-time Pulitzer Prize winning American political commentator and author Thomas Friedman advocates for inspiring young people to create the companies that will provide long-lasting employment for the country's citizens. And I was reading about this. The interesting part is because he feels that the jobs on which his own generation relied are no longer available. He advocates for having students graduate high school innovation ready. So how do we really make our students innovation ready? Which means that they receive critical thinking, communication, and collaboration skills that will really help them invent their own careers. Undoubtedly, entrepreneurship education benefits students. And when I say benefit students, essentially from all socioeconomic backgrounds, because it teaches kids to think out of the box, undoubtedly nurtures unconventional talents and skills, and furthermore, it creates opportunity, ensures social justice, instills confidence, and stimulates the economy. Now, there's another term which goes which goes hand in hand with entrepreneurship. And to my mind, that is empowerment. And why so? I believe entrepreneurship can and should promote economic opportunity and should always serve as an agent of social justice. If you look at, historically, entrepreneurship has always ensured the kind of opportunities that has been created. So if you look at, for instance, if you look at immigrants all over the world, in terms of how they've created better lives for themselves and their families. If you look at women, the way they have come up in the entrepreneurship ladder, if you look at minorities around the world, numbers will speak for themselves. In US, for instance, minorities currently own around 15% of all US businesses. Women are starting businesses at almost 1.5 times the national average. And currently, 40% of businesses are owned by women. And this number is really rising very fast and should be, in all fairness. Immigrants are another very inspiring example. Today, since we are discussing about US and going by numbers, around 18% of businesses are owned by immigrants. And I was reading about this. Friedman, in fact, advises young entrepreneurs to imagine that they themselves are immigrants, because he feels that new immigrants are paranoid optimists, while immigrants who start businesses know they might fail, as Burrett was also mentioning, the risks associated, and especially first time when someone is doing it, the learning curve, etc. But the fact of the matter is that they have nothing to lose. So essentially, they are risk takers and persistent. And I think both these traits are vital for entrepreneurs to succeed. Because entrepreneurship really fosters this kind of character traits, which really promises to benefit all students. And when I say all students, we are discussing about groups that are coming up. But I believe it's very democratic, very universal. Yes, at times, and again, what I'm discussing with you may not be universally applicable, but yes, at times, kids from affluent backgrounds may find it a little difficult to take risks and make mistakes, which I believe are necessary for cultivating this kind of ingenuity. Because today, if you look at it, like, entrepreneurs may not always be necessarily, book smart, but given an opportunity to utilize their people skills, risk-taking skills, they may really thrive. And we have seen this, that academic success and social skills may not always go hand in hand. A problem-solving attitude is a different trait altogether. Not necessarily that they cannot coexist. Of course, they can. We have seen great entrepreneurs who have academically, very accomplished, very successful. But in many cases, we have seen entrepreneurs who are B students, but they're good at a variety of things. They may not be stellar at one thing in particular, but the ability to think broadly, which allows these young people to complete the variety of tasks necessary in starting companies. Now, we were discussing about the fact that entrepreneurship education, I believe, really is important because it includes, it really promotes social and economic well-being. And today, if you look at the correlation between entrepreneurship and happiness. Now, there's an interesting study. This was conducted in 2012 by University of Pennsylvania's Wharton School of Business. And this study, there was a sample that was taken among 11,000 MBA graduates. And according to the Wharton professor, who conducted the studies and who co-authored the study, graduates who started their own businesses were, for the most part, significantly happier than others due to perceived greater control over their own destiny. So it's no wonder that a lot of well-known business schools also, because today, if you look at B school curriculum as such, and this again has been a debate in B schools corridors across the world, that is the thrust more on preparing B school graduates for corporate careers, or is the thrust more on also promoting entrepreneurship? But today, if you look at renowned B schools around the world, whether there be Wharton, Columbia, Harvard, they're really ramping up the entrepreneurship offerings, no doubt about it. If you look at developments over the last decade and a half, it's very clear. Now, this entire idea of infusing entrepreneurship into education has really spurred much enthusiasm in last few decades. And a myriad of effects has been stated to result from this. Today, if you look at economic growth, job creation, increased social resilience, individual growth, increased school engagement, and also improved equality. However, when we try to put this idea into practice, we were discussing about entrepreneurship education in schools, but when you try to put this into practice, there are some practical significant challenges which coexist along with these positive effects. It can be lack of time, resources, fear of commercialism, existing structures, assessment difficulties, lack of definitional clarity are some of the challenges that practitioners have actually encountered while trying to infuse entrepreneurship into education. Of course, we have a stellar panel here today, and I'm sure they'll deliberate more on the practical aspects with regard to how this is being done. Now, but I think what I would really want to focus on is that what we mean when we discuss entrepreneurship in education really differs significantly. Because as Shubhayu also mentioned when he just started the session, that many times, most of the time when we discuss, when we use the term entrepreneurship, a narrow definition of it, the first thing that comes to our mind is encouraging students to start up their own company. I believe that this is a rather narrow definition of entrepreneurship, where we just, discuss only about starting a new venture. It is not all about starting new organizations, but it is also about making students more creative, opportunity-oriented, proactive, and innovative. So adhering to a wide fluctuation of entrepreneurship, so definition which is relevant to all walks of life. So not necessarily starting a venture. A common denominator between these differing approaches. So one approach, very narrow approach, starting a company, and second approach, a much broader one. But the common denominator between these differing approaches is that all students can and should train their ability and willingness to create value for people. So this is at the core of entrepreneurship, and it's also a competence that all citizens increasingly need to have in today's world, regardless of career choice. So again, creating organization, again, as I told you, is a very narrow definition. So the fact that entrepreneurship is relevant to education has so far always been viewed from an economic point of view. Now this works well if you look at elective courses at a higher education level. But I believe it's more problematic when infusing entrepreneurship into primary and secondary levels of education for all students. So here a much less discussed but highly interesting impact that entrepreneurship can have on education is the high level of student motivation and engagement it can trigger, and also the resulting deep learning. I believe that is the ultimate objective. So students can really be highly motivated and engaged, because what basically happens is that such an approach has a far-reaching implication with regard to learning to plan, execute, assess, etc. So the question is how to make students more, how to actually do this. So around the world, entrepreneurship education at a school level for school students around the world has been prevalent for quite some time. Different terminologies are used. For instance, I'll say two most frequent terms in this field are enterprise education and entrepreneurship education. For instance, in UK, we see the term enterprise education being used primarily, whereas in US, the term entrepreneurship education is primarily used. Again, in Northern and Eastern Europe, some additional terms are used. For instance, in Sweden and Balkans, the term entrepreneurship learning is often used as an equivalent to enterprise education. Now, again, we were discussing about Finland the other day. Another set of term used in Finland is internal entrepreneurship education and external entrepreneurship education. Now, when it comes to entrepreneurship, the conversion, and again, this is another important part. So one part we discussed, I think two things I wanted to focus on. One was the narrow versus the wider definition of entrepreneurship. And second, what I want to discuss now is whenever we discuss about entrepreneurship, so the conversation has been captured by either the romanticized notion of self-employed individuals who are driven to entrepreneurship for survival, or the glamorous world of urban tech-driven entrepreneurship focused on building the next unicorn. Now, I completely understand, agree, and all of us will agree that such enterprises are important for the economy. But it's also true that it benefits only a certain section of the population. And it is also important to look at mass entrepreneurship. I remember a quote by Victor Hugo, who once said, "No army is more powerful than an idea whose time has come." I believe mass entrepreneurship is an idea whose time has clearly come. So when we discuss the term mass entrepreneurship, what actually is it? It refers to the millions of local businesses that typically hire 5 or more people, use local inputs, and serve local needs in every community. We see such businesses employing 15, 20 people, 30 people, thriving, growing, serving local communities. Not necessarily every small business that we see in our localities, not necessarily every business grows into unicorn, but they really serve a great purpose in terms of adding value to people, to solving their problems, and also in terms of creating employment. Now, these range from a beauty salon, or a food caterer, or a car servicing shop, artisan collective. In most thriving economies, they form the backbone of the economy and employment. So the past growth experience of US and current progress of China, up to a very large extent, these SMEs have really helped mass flourishing of local entrepreneurs, creating local businesses. Now, the first, so how do you actually do it? The first, I think, most important thing is to nurture entrepreneurial mindsets early. So today, many students, I'll not say all, but most students cannot imagine entrepreneurship as a career choice, even now. Global evidence has proved time and again that school-based exposure to entrepreneurship is really effective in making students want to start their business one day. So what kind of curriculum are we looking at? Should be a curriculum which combines compelling stories, interaction with real entrepreneurs, hands-on experiences in launching a business to help students see themselves as business owners, and also a lot of small habits. I think many of them, parents also have a large role to play, a very large role to play. So when children are growing up, do we fix their pocket money's allowances, or do we encourage them to contribute in some way or the other? For instance, something in the house where they can contribute. Can they come and tell parents that, okay, this is something that I want to help on? Can we teach them how to negotiate? Can we teach them to come out of a fixed paycheck mindset? Instead of reading bedtime stories every night, at times, can we give them some objects? Can we just sit with them and tell them that, imagine there are 4 items, say a red shirt, a blue tie, a kangaroo, and a laptop. And can we tell them instead to tell us a story about these 4 things, which will teach them creativity, which will teach them to think on their feet, which will teach them selling skills? Can we really inspire our children to stand up and talk in front of the group, maybe in front of their friends, do plays, give speeches? So these are traits which we should nurture. Traits like tenacity, leadership, introspection, interdependence, values. Undoubtedly, they help a lot. A lot of good work has been done in India, undoubtedly, there's no doubt about it. And I'm sure many of our esteemed panelists will talk about them. So whether that be including entrepreneurship in terms of the curriculum, whether that be in terms of Atal Tinkering Labs Initiative Fund experiment. So it was a success, undoubtedly. Udayam Learning Foundation. So a lot of good work has happened. There's no doubt about it. And we really need to think out of the box as a society, as a nation. Einstein once said that if you always do what you always did, you will always get what you always got. So undoubtedly, it is important to think differently. So today, as I was telling you, taking a step back, I was discussing about the narrow and the wider definition of entrepreneurship. So I was reading about what Mark Zuckerberg said at 2016 Global Entrepreneurship Summit. And he defined entrepreneurship very beautifully as, he said that entrepreneurship is about creating change, not just companies. So it's not about companies, it's about creating a change. Creating a change, in communities, in society that you come from. It's not only about finding, being able to start a $1 billion tech company. So, and again, teaching our kids to think like entrepreneurs, I think that is the most important part. I was going through a survey which was recently done, a research. Now, which says that children who are born in the year 2000 will, on an average, they will do 15 jobs during their career in 6 industries. So that clearly shows how volatile things are going to be. So imagine a child in his career span down the line, working in 6 different industries and 15 jobs. A small story I would like to share here. So much of good work happening around the world, kids really coming up. I was reading about a 10-year-old girl named Anna. She reads in a school in Sydney, Tamara High School. She really cares a lot about the environment. And she also loves art. And recently, she participated in a contest. In front of judges, in front of a galaxy of judges, many of them senior professionals from the industry, academicians, etc. She and her group of friends, who were all in the same age bracket, they used their creative energy and created a real product. And the whole concept was about how to reduce the amount of plastic that ends up in our oceans. So it's hard to imagine, right? For a 10-year-old conducting a market research, writing a business plan, build a prototype for a fully biodegradable straw before presenting it to a panel of judges. And I was just watching that small clip. When she was walking out from the stage, the glow in her face, you could really see the kind of confidence. You can really see the kind of happiness. It really shows that she is proud to share it with the world. So I believe, so next time we all speak to a high school student, instead of asking them what you want to be when you grow up, I believe it's important to ask them, what problems do you want to solve? So I think these were some thoughts that I wanted to share. I thank all of you for giving me a patient hearing. We have a very esteemed and experienced panel here today. As Burrett also mentioned, many of the entrepreneurs, and I'm sure they'll share their own perspective, and I really look forward to that. Over to you, Shubhai.
Thank you, Achin. Thank you for that wonderful presentation. Well, ladies and gentlemen, as Achin said, we do have a stellar panel lined up for you today. However, there are a quick set of announcements, very, very important announcements that I need to make to you before we can start our discussion. Last year, during July and August, we had conducted an inter-school event for students. Propelled by the confidence that we got from the support that we saw all of you giving together for education, we set up 0 Hour, which was an online international inter-school debate from 16th of July to the 15th of August last year, we had 39 rounds of debating and some of the most phenomenal debating talent on display. The finals on 15th of August saw Mayo College girls Ajmer face off against Indian Language School Lagos. Before I make the big announcement for this year, let us take a quick look at what happened last year.
India, its beauty is in its diversity, and yes, we thrive on the idea of unity in diversity, but how does that unity come about?
May I begin by saying our worthy opponents today have completely confused the topic under discussion, that is gene editing, with that of gene therapy.
We have been poor stewards of our own planet. We have islands of trash in our oceans and alarming climate changes, and we wish to blissfully ignore all of that in order to explore space.
It is not just an ode to those who were oppressed. It is not just for those who stood up and brought change. It is because excellent individuals have been overlooked for way too long because they choose to love against the constraints of this heteronormative society.
But as Chrystia Freeland said, to be sure that the new economy benefits us all and not just the plutocrats, we need to embark on an era of comparably ambitious economic change.
Did you know that small businesses make up 60% of the victims of patent troll attacks? And did you know that massive corporations have so many patents that small businesses can't even manage to compete?
If nations are not militarily self-sufficient, the chances of them being engulfed by more powerful nations is inevitable, which is quite evident in cases like Tibet in China in 1950.
The poorly regulated global trade in conventional arms and ammunition fuels conflict and human rights abuses is what exactly the Arms Trade Treaty promises to reduce.
But if today China, Russia or the United States of America actually violates one of these laws, the farthest I can think we can go is post an Instagram post against them.
With the FISA court warrants and the Patriot Act of 2002, the United States government, through tools such as PRISM and X-Keyscore, developed capabilities to monitor everything done by virtually everyone.
That is what ensures humanity to progress. Anything to the contrary is stagnation, and stagnation is death.
Who will decide who is the worthy poor and who is not? Who will be there to supervise that the money given away is properly used? The government?
Well, unless I remind you all that the people that you saw on your screen were school students, you would find it very, very hard to fathom from the depth of their arguments. This is what happened last year. The grand finale itself saw more than 1,200 people watch the debate happening live. Well, we had confidence in the intellect that the students possessed. We had full faith in the kind of support that we received from the schools. So this year, we got a little more ambitious. This year, we tied up with IIM Calcutta Innovation Park. Together with them, ladies and gentlemen, I'm extremely proud to announce that this year, Notebook will present Ignite, an international inter-school online innovation and entrepreneurship challenge. We invite students from across these schools to come and pitch their business plans, their entrepreneurial ideas, their thoughts about problem solving to an elite panel of judges that our knowledge partners, IIM Calcutta, have put together. And over the period between 9th of July to the 15th of August, we want to arrive at the most premium ideas that our young students can throw up. The registrations are open now. If you're a school leader, if you're a school coordinator, please go ahead and register. The curtain raiser event is happening on the 5th of July at 5 p.m. We have two master classes that will be conducted by the IIM Calcutta Innovation Park for these students. The first masterclass would be about the entrepreneurial journey, what the entrepreneur goes through, what problem solving is all about, which will happen on 6th of July. And on the 8th of July, you would have the masterclass 2, which is about making the perfect business pitch. This will help the students hone their presentations around their business ideas better. We start our qualifiers from the 15th of July, which will go until the 7th of August. This is the stage where we have 64 schools facing off against each other. Once we do that, we pick up 24 schools from there. The top 24 go on to the semifinals, which have to be held between the 9th of August to the 13th of August. And then out of these 24 schools, 12 top schools make it to the grand finale, which is again happening on 15th of August this year at 5 p.m. So if you are a teacher, a school coordinator, or somebody who wants your students to perform at this particular event, this here is the link to get to. Please take a screenshot of this, write it down, make a note of it. This will also be communicated to your schools individually over email and WhatsApp. We are looking forward to the same kind of love and support that we saw for 0 Hour last year. And we are confident that this event would be a huge step forward in kindling the right kind of entrepreneurial spirit amongst our students. Well, ladies and gentlemen, speaking about entrepreneurship, today we are privileged to have 3 young entrepreneurs, or should I call them edupreneurs, people who have gone through a fantastic life in education and then decided to give back to society by getting back into education themselves. We have with us Mr. Amit Jugran, who is currently the principal at Mussoorie Public School in association with Wellham Boys School, Uttarakhand. Prior to this, he was the deputy headmaster and director of sports at the Assam Valley School, where he also taught English and history. His passion for teaching and transforming residential schools stems from his experiences at the Doon School and Wellham Boys School, where he spent his formative years as a student. His past experience includes working at Unilever and Williamson Magor's Group in the Tea Division and at the Aditya Birla Group, Laos. He holds an MA in English, a B.Ed, and a diploma in Educational Administration and Management. Sir, thank you so much for being here. Privileged to have you with us. We also have with us Mr. Raghav Oberoi, who did his schooling at the prestigious Doon School as well, and has graduated in Mechanical Engineering from Manipal Institute of Technology, Manipal, and pursued an MBA from Indian School of Business, Hyderabad. During his MBA at ISB, he was selected to represent the college for the exchange program to Kellogg School of Management, Chicago, US. After graduation in engineering, he was selected on campus by Tata Motors as a graduate engineering trainee and underwent training in their Jamshedpur and Pune plants. After 1 year's experience with Tata Motors, he joined the family business of automobile dealerships in the year 1999. Under his leadership, the group started the Tata Passenger Car Dealership in 1999, the Tata Commercial Vehicles Dealership in 2001, Honda Cars Dealership in 2006, and the Renault Cars Dealership in 2012. The automobile dealership group has grown to establish high market share and customer satisfaction levels in the Garhwal region of Uttaranchal under his guidance. The family founded the Oberoi School of Integrated Studies, the OASIS, as a pioneering day boarding school at Sports City Raipur in Dehradun. The school aims to provide a world-class education with a judicious mix of academic, sporting, and co-curricular activities in order to provide a truly broad-based and comprehensive all-round education. He is also an avid gardener, enjoys painting and swimming, and has kept his passion for nature alive through his pursuits in horticulture and dairying. Sir, thank you so much for gracing this platform. Privileged to have you with us today. We also have with us Mr. Arpit Panjwani, who is a transformative school leader and an experienced edupreneur with a demonstrated history of working in the educational management and sports industry. He is particularly skilled in school management, business development, business strategy, leadership, and team management. Arpit completed an international MBA from IE Business School in Madrid. During his time in Spain, he gained vital exposure with startups, fundraising, and honed his leadership and entrepreneurial acumen that now helps him to scale his ventures and diversify his business interests. Arpit went to school at the Doon School, Dehradun as well, and went on to study at the Sri Ram College of Commerce in Delhi. His experience of being taught by excellent educators at prestigious institutions has made him more mindful of the less fortunate who lack access to quality education. He seeks to address this gap by promoting grassroots education, experiential learning, and sports amongst the underserved. His educational mission is to discover and develop each child's interests and gifts with an overarching vision to educate, enlighten, enrich, and empower change agents who will not only challenge the status quo, but also lead initiatives to solve local and global challenges. Sir, thank you so much for being here today. Thank you for making the time. I shall start my video now, stop the share so that we can see each other and discuss about how important do you find entrepreneurship as a skill to be imparted in schools. Mr. Jugran, if we can come to you first. Good evening, sir. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you. Yeah, please.
Sir, there's a slight breakage in your audio. I hope the network is fine.
The network is coming on and off. I think I told you of the problem out here. It just keeps coming on and off. Am I audible?
Yes, perfectly now.
Okay.
So the first question is, how important do you find entrepreneurship as a skill to be imparted in schools?
Yeah, definitely. I think you see the way businesses were very limited earlier. There was people were very localized. There was not much of collaboration with the people around. But now, if you see with the global market opened up, there's internet, there is connectivity. So definitely, there's a whole lot of opportunities which have risen, and it also has given a lot of opportunity to people to actually move away from their family business if they had started up small family businesses, or if they had ideas of doing business, which probably were curtailed because of limitations. Definitely now that whole market is opened up for people, there's enormous capacity to collaborate with people, to coexist with people. And, the competition can only be won if you're collaborating with others and moving ahead. You cannot beat people on your own, but if you're going to collaborate with others and collaborate with different people, then definitely the limit is limitless. So definitely it's very important. It has come at a very important point in schools also, that we nurture these young minds, who can turn themselves into probably stabilizing the economy more at a certain time, giving jobs to people, realizing their own dreams, in fact. And, and definitely, I think one part of entrepreneurship should be that generosity. They must give it back to the society in whichever way they can. So I think, yes, it's very important in schools. It has to be taught. But then again, we face a little bit of an issue because the Indian curriculum system doesn't support it much. And Doon School that way, I think we are 3 DOSCOs here sitting here, and Mr. Burrett has been a master also. One of the best thing about Doon School was, I think, the teachers never laughed at your dreams. Even if it was the weirdest of dream, I think we've all gone through it. Nobody laughed at you, and that was one point where I think you got that pep, you got that josh, that yeah, fine, even if it's a very small dream, I'm going to chase it. I think that was one of the most driving points of, and still is a driving point of the Doon School. Not undermining the other schools, please. I'm just, because I think it's so into us that I think we breathe it day and night. So yes, definitely, I think the schools have a long way and definitely have a big response, especially on the teachers, on the people who are sitting on, important positions, and especially. They have to motivate the parents, because parents are still a little, some of the parents who are not very careers, they don't want their children to dream. And the person, whoever is not dreaming, is not going to go anywhere by the end of it. But sometimes the parents themselves become an obstacle. So definitely the schools, it's on the schools, it's the schools' responsibility to inform them that in time to come, the careers which they had are probably not going to be there. The way they were going, it's not going to happen anymore like that. Things are going to change drastically for these young people. And I think both of us, the parents and the school, have to get along together to get these people, to dream in a very, very different way. And I think there are various ways I think a school can help a child in that. I think my fellow DOSCOs will agree to that.
Right, sir. Thank you so much. I'll just get over to Mr. Oberoi. So you kind of had a family business to begin with, but then you've swiveled it around. The Oasis is a wonderful, wonderful school. So could you just tell us how you see entrepreneurial attitude as a thing in children?
Yeah, so, taking the lead from the speakers who've spoken before, Mr. Burrett and Achin, I think a wonderful, and Amit have given us a wonderful account of what schools can do to build entrepreneurship. And I think the Doon School, since all 3 of us are DOSCOs, definitely built that attitude in us to be risk takers, and also to lead and to pursue your dreams. Like Mr. Burrett very clearly pointed out that no student was made to feel odd about any pursuit that he wanted to take up. In fact, we were always encouraged to excel in whatever we were good at. So, even if someone wanted to be a musician or an artist, they were all encouraged. And I think it's with that thought, when I also pursued my further education, joined the family business. In fact, even the dealership business We were at a time we started where people were skeptical. There's always, in most industries, there is always that status quo that people are happy with. But we pioneered ahead. There were always naysayers who were like, is it worth it? Do you want to keep on getting so many brands? And look at India today. We have close to 18 automobile brands, and so that was in entrepreneurship in its own sense that we took the risks. We thought that we could bring in products which the customers would go for. Now, bringing it to the school level, when I thought about it, when Mr. Burrett called me just 2 days ago, I basically broke down entrepreneurship in my mind in 4 parameters. There's the first parameter that I think that needs to be built in is, an attitude for need identification and innovative mindset, a problem-solving attitude. So in a school like Doon, we were always thrown into many challenges. And that's something that we're trying to inculcate at the Oasis as well, so that the children should have a problem-solving mindset, because they should always be able to challenge the status quo. And only with that mindset can they, look at new avenues, come up with new ideas. And the new generation, as we are seeing, even Achin pointed out that the number of startups that are coming is unprecedented in earlier times. And they are fearless because they have great ideas. And the second pursuit is obviously one should have the passion to go ahead and, because no business or entrepreneurial venture can be built by an individual. You need a team, right? So you need that, the passion that you have has to be transcended onto your teammates, and you need to build that team. That networking is very important. And obviously you need those long hours of rigor that you need to put in. So passion for what you know, what you do is something that's, again, a very important attribute to build in at the school level. And children, earlier schools had that fixed mindset that, we want to churn out doctors, engineers, and CAs, but now parents are also very open. So the Oasis, Dehradun, even though we had excellent boarding schools, but on the day school front, since we are also residents of Dehradun, the day school front, we only had the old format of school where the academic records were excellent, but there was no co-curricular, there was no innovation that the children were, promoted towards. And that's what we have tried to build into the school. And obviously, with it comes when you talk of innovation, innovation has to be broad-based to take care of society at large. Any innovation that comes can only be successful if it's accepted at a mass level and benefits society at a mass level. So yes, an attitude for problem solving, passion to drive it, and obviously the skill to build a team, so that's where sports come in very importantly, because I think in a school format where children learn to work in teams is always on the sports field. There will be times where one would feel let down and this and that, but you rise, you learn to sell yourself, you learn to network on the games field. I was not a great sports person, right? But I had to sell my skills that no, I can, be a goalkeeper, I can do wicket keeping, which is maybe not too much in the forefront. But, you learn those things on the sports field. So that's very important. And obviously, another very important aspect is the endurance. With it comes the risk-taking ability and the need for endurance, to build into the children the skill to be able to pursue something till fruition. Because a lot of times one may get good ideas and have passion for it, but you could move from one idea to the next very soon. But I think even at the school level, younger children, because of the kind of exposure they have now to gadgets and to the different streams, they can tend to change the subjects they want very fast and things like that. So even at the OSS, we built a model where, up to grade 5, the child gets to experience a lot of different things. But from grade 6, 7 onwards, middle school to senior school, they should start focusing on one or two aspects that they would like to excel at and, see it to fruition. That's an important aspect. So yes, we've had wonderful speakers and thank you for having us. Yeah.
I thank you so much for being here, first of all. But I think the way you broke it down into the 4 steps, I think I can so identify it so very well. Doing the whole startup journey, these are the exact 4 things that I have had to pick up along the way. Thank you. Thank you for sharing that. Arpit, if we can come to you next.
Yes, thank you very much, Subhayu. And of course, big thank you to Mr. Burrett for having me over. And of course, through my school life, obviously inadvertently encouraging me to be an entrepreneur, as we've seen all 3 of us through our school lives, through the myriad activities and opportunities we had that really promote entrepreneurial acumen amongst us. So I'll just go forward. Most of the panelists have covered what I had to say, but I think one important point which I want to make here is that I feel entrepreneurship is not basically a skill, it's a mindset, it's a growth mindset where you go forward to solve a particular problem. It can start off as an individual problem and then go on to, once you start validating it, go and become a societal or a particular regional or a tech problem per se. If you see the biggest of startups, I mean, say Uber started as a personal problem. I mean, if you can't hail a cab at a particular moment in time, then you start validating and finding a solution. So I feel like going forward, entrepreneurship is one of the most important, not just skills, but a mindset where we have to ingrain in our students to make them believe that any kind of problem, big or small, anywhere close by in your vicinity or anywhere known can become a sort of business validated proposition which you can go and explore into. And besides that, I mean, we do need to facilitate entrepreneurship to, ingrain a mindset where, you not only encourage risk taking, but also how to embrace failure. So I keep reiterating this time and again that, as the great Abdul Kalam said, the word fail in itself means first attempt in learning. And as we all know, only about 10% of the startups that we see these days, only 10% of them go on to actually succeed or become really game-changing scenarios over time. So we do need to, in the given scenario that we live in, a VUCA world where there is a lot of volatility, uncertainty, complexity and ambiguity, need to re-emphasize and let our students going forward know that failure is okay. We must appreciate that. We must learn from that and going forward, improve on our own skill sets and mindsets. Like I said, that we do need to continue emphasizing that students need to have a growth mindset, a drive, a motivation, sort of leadership acumen. And besides, of course, I guess through entrepreneurship, inadvertently, we continue to impart 21st century skill sets, which include communication, creativity, collaboration, teamwork. And as we heard all the panelists say that, I mean, when we do these experiential learning activities over time, all of these get covered when we have an entrepreneurial mindset or a curriculum in place in all the schools. So yes, I think all of us going forward need to have quick and smart decision-making skills being entrepreneurs. And I guess all schools need to take this up proactively, wherein, students understand that the world is at a sort of risk. It's a game-changing scenario. The jobs of tomorrow are not going to be the same. And hence there needs to be a quick decision-making. Like all people working in startups say, you need to be used to the hustle, I mean, continuously pivoting or persevering or, remodeling your ideas per se. So that needs to be done through the school level where students need to be taught through various activities, not just through an entrepreneurial subject or, a sort of game playing that, you may need to encounter any scenario in life which may not be particularly favorable, and it more often than not can become adverse. And that mindset needs to be incorporated by the students really appreciate that, anything which they had planned, I mean, it did not go as per plan, and they can, remodel their perspective and plan and then go forward, with a renewed approach without really being bogged down by the situation. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Arpit. If I may stay with you for just a couple of moments longer, given that the vision that you have for Anandmayee Memorial School, if I have to talk about entrepreneurial skills and how you as a school help students develop them, with a particular focus on the skill of empathy, right? You and I know that as an entrepreneur, the first step is always to identify that need that exists, and that
Absolutely.
only happens when you can empathize with the consumer, so to say.
Yes.
How do you kind of develop these skills in students?
But I mean, yes. So when you have, say, a design thinking mindset, or an empathetic scenario, you do first need to, when you need to validate or find a need, you need to go deep into that problem statement and understand whether it actually exists or not. So it's not basically, one cannot say that it is a validated scenario unless until you went absolutely deep into understanding whether it was an actual problem statement or not. So for that, I guess, at least in our case, we encourage students to basically go and validate on a sort of long term as well as a broad frame perspective where they can take time. There is no hurry, firstly, to understand that, this problem actually exists. And beyond that, go out and speak to all the students, all the faculty members at large, so that they get a proper perspective without really any kind of rakish scenario to work on a given problem statement. When, say, we're working on certain projects that really uphold the sustainable development goals, connected to the environment, which we do quite proactively. So for that, students really need to go out, speak to the village, local communities, speak to the major stakeholders like the Gram Pradhan and so on. We actually give them that platform, that exposure and that experience to go and validate that problem statement, not just sit inside schools and classrooms making castles or sort of assuming or presuming things, but actually go forward. So we were working on a Waste Warriors project, which is, an NGO based in Dehradun. And, we had to propose a sort of business model recently where we've solved any kind of, sort of environmental problem in our vicinity. So we just didn't sit inside classrooms and rely on data given on the websites or, anywhere on Google. We actually had kids go out and do surveys, which is where they're actually able to come to a real world solution, a real world perspective of the given problem statement, when the local community can actually tell them about a man-animal conflict, or the case of, waste management not being proper, or the case of, there being excessive dumping in the Ganges River, which is pretty close to our school. So, when you talk about empathizing, it's very important to go very deep into the problem statement and actually discussing with the people who it really concerns, rather than just relying on bookish knowledge or any data available on Google per se.
Wonderful. I think the interactions that your students are developing in talking to the community around is something that goes so deep into this whole spirit of entrepreneurship. Thank you. Thank you so much for sharing that. Mr. Jugran, if I can come to you next. So a similar question, what are you doing in your school to make sure that your students inculcate these skills?
Well, I'll just begin with one thing, like you can start in your schools the teaching entrepreneurship. You can start with that, but nobody can guarantee that by the end of it, a person will become an entrepreneur, right? But what is more important is that you teach them these skill sets, the soft skills of, interpersonal skills, of collaboration, of ethical practices, so that no matter what they do in life, whichever career they choose, maybe it can be anything, it can be a dancer, can be an entertainer, can be anything, but at least they have these skill sets with them, which will, help them work ethically and choose the right path and work on these skills, So definitely, I think we'll not go with this that anyone who's practicing, any school which is practicing entrepreneurship will produce brilliant entrepreneurs. But yes, I think the main responsibility is to give them the set skills, give them the perfect soft skills, so that wherever they go, whatever they choose, they excel in that. Now, coming back to our school, a very traditional school, but after coming in, collaboration with association with Wellham Boys, definitely we are making the move from what we were earlier. We have certain plans, and I can just share it, offhand, that firstly, what we plan to do is that we really want our children to dream, actually. And we also want our children to share their dream, because these days what happens, people are a little scared of opening up. They don't want to share their dream, and they do not share their dreams, and then they suffer because there might be somebody else who's dreaming like you, and you can collaborate with that person. You can come together and start something else. So first part is, yes, to speak their mind without the fear of anything. We also want to these entrepreneurship contests are there. We want our children to actually take part in this, so that they learn hands-on. They have the hands-on experience. They brainstorm. They find the solutions for the problems. They learn how decisions are taken, right? So apart from that, we also want that they we actually assess them on practical training. They read case studies of failed businesses, successful businesses, how the strategies are made in businesses, how they fail, why they failed, or why they succeeded. So definitely we want to start with that also. And then we want to tell them that, you have to get off that beaten track, that innovation is the key ahead. Move from that line which everyone has been following, be a little different, think out of the box, what we keep, keep telling everyone, that you have to be a little different, and, challenge the normal norms, basically. Challenge everything what is happening. Why don't you just think that it can be done in a very different way than what has been projected to you all these years? And then I think probably, one of the best ways will be to tell the children to go for internship. I think the moment you start going for internship, you start mixing around with people, you start seeing what actually happens at the ground level. How people are getting together to solve a problem, how people are communicating with each other, how your idea, even if it is turned down, how you have to behave, the resilience which has to be developed. So I think the internship can be a good motivating factor for a person to actually learn what life is all about and how things are going to be once you are, out in the world. And definitely, as Arpit also said, it's not necessary that, and you also mentioned, not necessary that anything you start off has to be a success. It cannot happen from the word go. But you have to be tenacious. You have to have the tenacity to continue trying. But you also have to know somewhere where you got to stop also. You got to know that, okay, this is not for me. I got to move on to something else. So it has to be a balance of knowing yourself, having a gut feeling, good instincts. So I think this is all what we are now trying to inculcate in our students, that so that maybe they can. There definitely must be skills and talents which are untapped here. And every child is curious. You have to follow his curiosity. You have to just follow where he's going. Let him find the solutions. And once he's done that, and when he's out in the world and he faces that kind of a problem, that same curiosity is going to come back to him, and he's going to ask questions again. And that is how he's going to click. He's going to get those, sudden, he's going to get those answers. So that curiosity cannot be killed. It has to be built and rebuilt, so that tomorrow, wherever he is, he's going to motivate himself and others around it. So that's what we plan to do at school at the moment. Let's hope, things turn out well.
Wonderful, sir. I'm sure they will. Thank you so much for sharing that. The power of curiosity is something that we here at Notebook have spoken about multiple times. And it's so important that our kids, the young learners, they develop that curiosity right at a young age.
Yes.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Mr. Oberoi, if I can, thank you. Mr. Oberoi, if I can get across to you. When Mr. Batla was here as one of the panelists, I remember him talking about how your school really focuses on creativity, right? If you can just, because creativity is one of those very, very important skills for an entrepreneur to have. If you can just tell us about that.
So, at the Oasis, we have actually built a lot of infrastructure around co-curricular. The idea being that children should be able to, learning should come from various aspects and not just from the classroom. Like we've actually made this outdoor classroom where we have, it's in the shape of an octagon. We have 9 Ayurvedic significant trees, where it's an outdoor classroom where the children study under that. So, and we have a little dairy where, they see what organic, so, the word organic farming is so big today, but people actually don't even know. In India, there is no certified organic farming happening. But at least in our school, we show them, that this is organic farming. These are the cows. That's where the manure comes from. That's where how the organic manure is made, and that's how your vegetables grow. And why did the world move from organic to inorganic, and why is it moving back to organic? So when they see everything happening, I think, and we give a lot of freedom. Our timetabling is not very rigid. We intersperse academic classes with co-curricular and activities. So the idea being that every aspect that the school offers, is a learning opportunity, and that's how I think the creativity comes in. That children are given a lot of freedom. The teachers are the teachers are also encouraged to take the children out into the campus, and they can conduct a class outside and actually show them the birds and the bees. And I think those are the kind of things that Mr. Burrett has helped us design the outdoor areas also to some extent, and we are looking at making a adventure kind of a park where there's rock climbing and all that. So the idea being that with every little activity, there is learning that comes in, especially for city-bound children who are not going out so much. If you give them open spaces, if you give them trees and birds to see, and the nature to appreciate, they can learn a lot from natural environments. So I think we try to build all that into the curriculum.
I think that's wonderful. I mean, coming from Bengal, this took me right back to Shantiniketan's basics.
Yes.
Surround somebody with nature, and creativity will eventually flow from that.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. Sir, if I may ask, how do parents react to all this? And I'm now focusing on high school students, because particularly with class 11, 12 students, we see the parents extremely blinkered into what will happen after school, which college, what course, engineer or doctor. Do parents also take this very well?
I think the way our school is designed, and we are one of the first schools in Dehradun actually to start the Cambridge curriculum for the middle years program, with the idea that eventually we'll get the buy-in for the senior classes as well. Because I think Arpit also spoke about it, and Amit also, on how the Indian curriculums are kind of regimented and a little old school. Though the new education policy is trying to take schools and the curriculum into the direction of creating children with more innovative and creative mindsets. So when parents see what we are doing, they appreciate. And in fact, we have a lot of parents who are doctors and engineers, but they don't want their children to go to the typical schools where they're going for coaching classes and everything, but they are actually they want their children to be out in the field, and because even they see value. I think even regimented industries there's always need for innovation in especially those industries between scientific industries. And they appreciate that when children are exposed to those kind of things, their learning becomes more varied. They think out of the box. Because as we are seeing, global challenges are so changing so fast that the newer generation will have to think equally fast to be able to react to those. And that thinking can only come when they are thinking out of the textbook. So I'm sure you probably had sessions on the Cambridge curriculum and international curriculum versus the Indian curriculum, and that's also, like I said, why the government has gone in for the new education policy, because even they realize that just textbook knowledge is not going to help. Children will need the textbook as a reference, because everything is, all the information is available on gadgets. It's how you collate the information, how you assess it, analyze it, and present it is what's going to matter. And parents are buying into that. They also appreciate that.
That's really heartening to hear. Arpit, I'll have the same question for you. You run a very successful cricket program, and we kind of grew up in a time when, cricket is all fine till class 10, but now it's your board year and therefore drop out of cricket. Do you still see that happening?
Well, yes. I mean, until last year or the year before last, we obviously saw that happening where a lot of parents inadvertently just turned up and said, that we don't see any specific future if something's not happened until date and there hasn't been a specific measurable result or what's the future per se. But I guess given the NEP now and the less reliance on the board exams per se, and of course, the lesser dependence on the silos where students are able to pick up subjects which are of usually their choice without really hardlining them into, say, science, commerce, or humanities. I think going forward, I definitely foresee that we'll have more students who will continue to play. Originally, of course, that's been one of the major impediments that we've seen, that once the student passes grade 8 or 9, then any parent, even if they realize that the child isn't particularly academically inclined, unfortunately, the attendance falls, the enthusiasm drops, the parents' support continues to flag, and then these kind of things, like we know, continue to sort of impact the performance per se, and a very talented child unfortunately loses out. But then I guess, thanks to the NEP, I really hope that, going forward, we'll have more students who will continue to take that risk. And what we're connecting to entrepreneurship, I think it's about risk taking, right? If anybody has a specific skill set or a talent, you've got to pursue it until a certain day and age or a certain time frame to expect the result. I think we've all seen in Dhoni's career, I guess he achieved that pretty late in the day. I mean, it took him a while to finally start playing at an established level, where he was on the brink of really quitting cricket. So one has got to be patient, one has got to be resilient, one has got to stay focused, and of course take that calculated risk over time, whether it's with sport or any entrepreneurial venture, if you really want to succeed in the long term.
Wonderful. I think the way this related back to entrepreneurial skills, thank you so much for making that connect.
Thank you.
Mr. Jugran, if I can come to you, sir, with the same question. You've been across multiple schools. How receptive are parents?
Well, I think it's the, if I say so, I think the parents are not going to change. Okay. So they will, that, there's a set mindset that my son should play till so and so age, and after that he must come and get into the books and all. But I mean, in school, I think I was Mr. Burrett will vouch for it. He was my housemaster also. A very average, I think, average in studies, but good in games. And I went to all the school teams and everything. But never either my housemaster or my teachers or even my headmaster ever told me that, boy, stop playing, enough is enough. Start studying, and I don't want to see you on the games field. Because they realize that the talent lays somewhere else. They realize that, okay, fine, if he's average in studies, but at least he's doing good in games, so let him play and build his skills on the field. Whatever it was, whether it was, whether I was building resilience, whether I was building a temper to win for the team, or whether I was learning other kind of skills, whether it was cooperation, whether I was getting along with my teammates. So, one has to understand, the parents too have to understand that it is just not the books. It's more of the practical world. When you're playing against an opposition who's tougher than you, what you think, the strategies you're going to make on the field. And we had there was Mr. Sheel Vora, who was our deputy head, who is no more, and he wrote in one of my reports that I cannot understand a person who can score a goal from a difficult angle cannot solve a maths problem. How is it possible? So that's how he related games and a student. So I think, and definitely a student too, from the student's point of view, he must make his the effort in the right direction so that the parents do not stop him from playing. So he has to balance his life. He has to understand that not all of us can become Virat Kohli or Sachin Tendulkar. Some of us may, but then definitely we need to balance it out by the end of it. So yes, I think it's a game which is going to be played between the school, parents, and the student. Definitely, it's a tricky situation for us, and generation after generation, I think it's going to happen. There's something which is not going to go away so easily. Thank you.
Well, thank you so much. But the one thing that we have learned in these last 1.5 years of conducting these webinars is that parents' mindset is changing bit by bit, more so in urban centers, but it is changing. So that's the heartening sign. So let's hope that parents also come around to this way of thinking. My last question, and this I don't have it for any particular one of you, but I would generally invite your comments on this. Last year, we have seen a lot of importance, and justifiably so, rightfully so, given to children with special needs, right? In everything that we do in schools, in all the policies that we frame, and all that we try to do, the children with special needs cannot become marginalized. Now, when you're talking about skills that are like risk taking or the ability to lead something, the getting your hands dirty bit of it, how do you ensure that the children with special needs don't get left out? Any of you can get into this. Mr. Jugran, would you like to go first? You're on mute, sir.
Arpit, you want to have a go at it?
Yeah, I mean, I just had a couple of points. I guess, foremost, what is of importance for children with special needs is to ensure that we build their confidence, which is most important. I think more often than not, they lack the confidence to approach that, which is pretty much important for any entrepreneurial venture. I guess communication is very important, wherein the role of special educators becomes foremost, where, they come in and they teach. So one size fits for all doesn't make sense. And inclusiveness is a very, very important part of going forward to make education inclusive. So I guess, yes, that is most important in terms of the role of special educators to build confidence in communication. And I guess for them, the entrepreneurial curriculums or, the sort of systems have to be made in a sense where they really become sort of industry aligned, where they can actually make something out of it, maybe in terms of anything to do with handicrafts or culinary or things like that, where instant results can be foreseen. I guess children with special needs do not particularly have the same kind of tenacity or resilience as the others. So for them to really monetize the experiments is very, very important going forward by the way of exhibitions and so on. And I think we've got some fantastic examples of certain NGOs doing some wonderful work in Dehradun in that domain. So yeah, that's what I feel about it.
I think, yeah.
Thank you so much. Yeah.
With this NEP also and the stress on the inclusive schools and, with the RPWD Act also, the Right of Person with Disability Act, well, these people definitely, the children with special needs definitely have to be included in the mainstream. There is no two way about it. And I think they have it in them to, we just need to support them, And in fact, the society has always looked down upon them, as people who are basically a burden or someone who cannot take care of himself. So definitely teaching them these skills, vocational training, which has been a major thrust now in the NEP also, definitely is going to teach them self-confidence. They're going to be more self-reliant. Above all, there's going to be they're going to respect themselves by the end of it. And if you look at it, even the government has many schemes like the Saksham scholarship scheme is there. It was for technical training. Then there is National Handicap Finance Development Corporation, which gives you a training in entrepreneurship to these disabled or you can say people with special needs. And then there's that Antanar project, which was also started by Mr. Shailesh Seth. And then if you look at the people who are, who have these disabilities like Iftikhar Ali and Muhammad Gaddafi, who have started off their own taxi service or the, other kind of things. So definitely, I think God has made them a little special than us, but I think has probably endowed them with other abilities more than us. I think we just need to tap that in school. And definitely, if the teachers and the society really gets together and thinks, I think there's nothing to be differentiated between a normal person and them by the end of the day. I think that they will do wonders if they're taught and their hand is held properly for a long time. That's what I feel about it.
Thank you so much. Mr. Oberoi?
Yeah, I think I would also look at this situation in two ways. One is obviously giving them skills where they can, get employed and be self-employed. But a bigger aspect of special needs children is also acceptance by other people. So I think in getting them into mainstream schools and having a certain population of children with special needs in the school, it helps the other children also to kind of understand that, this is not something that's taboo. This child also is good at, like Amit was saying, they might be a little weak on something, but they could be excelling on some other skill, and that identification will only happen if there's more interaction with them. They are brought out in the open and they are given the opportunities to compete with the other children. Only then I think that in itself will boost their confidence, boost the confidence of employers. That if an employer has seen a special needs child in his younger years, and when they grow up, they won't have so many doubts about hiring them as if they've not encountered them. So I think that aspect of acceptance from the others is also a very important aspect in bringing in special needs children to schools.
Thank you. Thank you so much for that. At this stage, I will need to bring somebody else into this discussion. Mr. Burrett, we have 3 DOSCOs here. So if you would want to say something to them.
So first of all, let me say that, I'm very, very grateful that, 3 very busy DOSCOs. I mean, they run their schools and I know how busy they are. But, once a teacher, always a teacher, and, these boys wouldn't say no to me. So I am really, really very, very grateful to them. And I think they spoke so brilliantly that, that makes me even prouder of them. I just hope and pray that they all do very well. And I've learned a lot from them today. I've really learned so much about, entrepreneurship and how they're dealing with the kids in their school. I mean, it's always so gratifying to see what our boys do, because 3 of them into education are carrying the spirit of the school to many, many more. People say, we need about 10 million Doon schools in this country. Well, the only way to do it is if our boys go out and start schools. And that's one way to, sort of proliferate the training that we got. And I think another thing that the Doon school teaches us is, if you're fortunate enough to come to school and if you're fortunate to have a good education, you are duty bound to give back to society. And that is, I think, what the 3 speakers today have brought out very amply. Thanks, Subayu.
Thank you so much, sir. Well, a big thank you to all of you for making the time and being here. I will now invite Achin to do the formal vote of thanks. But thank you so much for that extremely lively discussion. Achin, over to you.
Yeah, really, I guess we truly had a very wonderful session. And I thank members of our esteemed panel here today for being here. But sir, thank you as always for giving us a great start, for setting the tone for the evening. And I would just like to share this with all 3 DOSCOs in the panel here today. That Burrett sir has been a great mentor as far as Notebook is concerned. And today where we are, in last 2 years of our journey with more than 2 million students and 10,000 videos, I think a very large part of it undoubtedly is attributable to sir. His inputs, thought leadership has really strengthened our resolve from time to time. Mr. Jugran, thank you so much. I think I really like the way you started. I think a very, very important point, giving back to society. I think that undoubtedly is very important. That's, I think, one of the most important values, no doubt about it. And also aspect that you mentioned, like speaking their mind, which undoubtedly is very important. Collaboration in today's age, we can view things from 2 different perspectives. One is to compete. Another, I think equally important, if not more, is to collaborate. Also, aspects like resilience and maintaining balance. I think balance is something which is fundamental at the core and very, very important. Maintaining a balance, knowing how far to go, listening to your instincts, gut feeling. And I think it's really important for, as a civil society, for all of us to teach our children to have the courage, to have the guts, to throw their hat into the ring. It takes a lot. Trust me, and I'm sure all of us here would agree that it really takes a lot. And undoubtedly, parents and teachers have a huge role to play in this forum with so many esteemed educators here today. And I'm sure a lot of good work is happening. In fact, the new education policy 2020 also if you look at aspects like whether that be the multidisciplinary approach being advocated, concept of gap year that has come in, or also the whole thrust on vocational education. I think a lot has been done, undoubtedly. At least these are some great initiatives which will bear fruit in due course of time. Thank you indeed.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Raghav, I also thank you for being here today and for gracing the platform. Some wonderful points you made. I think one thing I really liked is the whole concept of problem-solving mindset that you dwelled on. That's very important. And also challenging the status quo. Challenging the status quo is something that last day when we were discussing in our session, I remember we were discussing about Eton, school which has given 20 British prime ministers. And I think one key differentiator, wherever we read about the school, is teaching children, nurturing the culture, encouraging the culture of dissent, which has been at the core. I think very, very important. Some great points you mentioned, undoubtedly, whether that be endurance, risk-taking ability, and also wonderful to know about the entire concept of organic farming in your school. So I think great initiative, undoubtedly.
Thank you.
Thank you. Arpit, I sincerely thank you for being here today. And I think the way you started off, really, it summed it up very well, that entrepreneurship is not a skill, but a mindset. I think that's a great quote, undoubtedly. And also starting from the entire concept of solving a personal problem to looking at it from a larger perspective where we can add value to the society. And indeed, in today's VUCA world, I think some great points you mentioned. Last but not the least, I think the last question that Shubhayu came up with, I would just like to add something. So with regard to children with special needs, two entrepreneurs that instantly comes to my mind, and all of us would agree, very, very successful individuals in their own right, who have made a difference to the world, and great at whatever they have done. Richard Branson and Tommy Hilfiger. Both of them incidentally suffered from dyslexia, but have really, in terms of their own individual business domains, have been great leaders, undoubtedly. So I sincerely and firmly believe that given an opportunity, undoubtedly children with special needs also can come up and contribute a lot. And I'm sure that will also happen in the course of time, and that is happening. So I think we really had a great session. I thank members of the esteemed audience as well for their time here today. Thank you, take care, and goodbye.
Thank you very much, everybody.
Thank you, Arpit. Thank you.
Thank you, Achin. Thank you, guys.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.